Good morning and welcome to our H3 TV, Turning Pineapple People, Turning Problem and Solution with my guest today. I'm Annie Meehan, a motivational speaker, coach, and consultant who is a writer. I am grateful to have won an international award in one of my books and a national in one of my 9 books. So I love just coming to you every week with strategies, ideas, encouragement to help you navigate disruption, hard days, difficult people, conversations, and communication. The biggest thing I like to say is first, good morning. And second, feel free to comment, say hello, ask a question. We're here to serve you and encourage you on this Friday morning. So thank you for tuning in. And let me please welcome to the stage my friend Amanda. Hello, Amanda. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you, Annie?
I'm doing great. It's Friday. I've had a full,
Yes.
blessed week. So tell me, who are you, Amanda? What do you do? Where do you live? All the good things.
Yeah, so I am a native New Yorker, born and raised, never leaving. I run a boutique consulting company, which is very funny. I could tell you a little bit later on how it started, but we cover end-to-end business operations. And although that sounds like kind of a mouthful, it's essentially fixing the way a business operates, trying to increase the bottom line, of course, but naturally make things more efficient, clean up some of the data, all that jazz. And so we help really companies kind of sift through a lot of the noise and fix, the way that their organization is running. So that's kind of who I am.
What size businesses do you work with? Are you open to
Yeah.
solopreneurs, mid-size, large? What?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I wouldn't say to anyone like you're too small or you're too large that we can't work with you, because if you think about companies like Accenture or some of the other large consulting companies, maybe they're a little bit more specific. We help companies, one, that have a reasonable budget, but we also typically tend to help companies in the middle market to enterprise space. We've had a couple of small businesses, but again, like I think it's more so about the level of need, which a middle market business usually has more of a need for someone like us. But we're okay to help any kind of business if they have a need and they have a reasonable budget. We'll work something out.
I
Yeah.
like the word reasonable
Yeah.
budget. I
Yeah.
actually feel like, Amanda, you've done a lot of great work in the world. And so I'm going to give you broader questions and I'm
Yep.
going to ask you to work through a thought with me today as well. But I
Sure.
do love, I know, unfortunately, so many of my listeners are going through major disruptions in their
Yes.
business and in their lives. And I feel like you have really this strength when when we're running an organization by ourselves or with a small team, it can be so overwhelming. And
Yep.
so, what I would love for you to tell our listeners is how do you help the organizations you work with stay hopeful, healthy, and happy, however you define that, in the midst of feeling overwhelmed? What are some of the tips and strategies?
Yeah. So again, like I think whether you're a small business or you're a small division of a business within a large organization, right? Like
Yeah.
a team or whatever it might be, all of the advice or the suggestions that I'm going to share today apply to either one of those scenarios, right? So it doesn't matter where you sit or what kind of business that you sit in. The way that I would sort of word that is when people hear the word disruption, I think it sounds incredibly scary. Like, what does disruption mean? It sounds negative, it sounds really scary. And I would say to folks that are hearing the word disruption, your industry is being disrupted, your job is being disrupted, try to see the word disruption as a positive thing. Disruption typically means we're going to change the way we know to do something and we're going to make it better. If we look at an example, I have tongue tied today. If we look at an example like Netflix, way back when, and I can remember the days of renting video cassette, movie VH cassette movie, whatever it is.
DVDs and VHSs,
The
yes.
the VHS. That's what I was looking for. The VHS tapes and having to rewind them and having a $4 million bill because you don't rewind them, right? So and that company that was was the leader at the time was called Blockbuster. Netflix was the disruptor, and so it felt at the time scary and weird. And I'm not going to adopt this, and because everybody was so used to at the time renting VHS. Then we came up with DVDs, and that's a whole nother thing. But like, again, Netflix was the one who started that level of disruption. And the same goes for today. So when we hear about people who are disrupting a business or a way that someone does something, it just means that they're going to do it differently. Will it be perfect? No. And again, Netflix, just an example I think is more relatable. There's many examples, but I think that's probably the most relatable. It won't be perfect, but there's opportunity there to do something better. And, we wouldn't have ATM machines or Netflix or any of the other sort of luxuries that we know today as sort of the norm if someone didn't disrupt, writing a check or, renting VHS from one of the very few, we had small mom and pop, video stores at the time, but Blockbuster dominated the market.
Which Blockbuster, I don't know if you know this, so I heard the founder of Netflix spoke at a conference I was at, and he went to Blockbuster and said, for $50,000, I'll let you buy
That's
this
right.
idea. And people
That's
said,
right.
that is ridiculous.
That's right.
I would never do it. And he needed the $50,000 to cover
That's
the
right.
debt he had taken
That's
on
right.
trying to create it, right? So as we start new businesses, you're taking on debt and you're thinking, I know this is good, but other people are like,
Yeah.
you're a weirdo. It's not going to work. And now
Yeah.
it's a billion-dollar
Now look
industry.
at them.
So I love that. And I think really what you're saying, Amanda, to our listeners is change your perspective, right? Like instead of seeing it as disruptive, go, this is a change, stay open. I love the stay open. What can I learn from it? And how can it enhance what we're already doing? It's going to be uncomfortable for a little bit, but in the long run, ideally, it's going to be so much better. So I love that.
I mean, and I would say, even though disruption does feel scary, I mean, the word disruption sounds like you're going to be run over, right? Like it sounds like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen? But I would say anytime that you hear disruption or some version of that that's happening in your industry or your job, try to see how you fit in to that equation. Kind of like what we do for my clients is, people get scared and they're nervous about change, right? Whether it's disruption or we're going to implement a new software system or we're going to change the way they do something until they understand where they fit in to that equation. Then it's said, oh, okay. Then you're going to learn a new thing. Are you going to be perfect at it? Probably not. Maybe not. But it's where you fit into that. And if you can't see yourself fitting into that, then of course, yes, it's going to feel scary.
Yeah. I also think you're talking about lowering or reducing emotion in it. Like emotion can drive fear, right? And you're saying, let's take a step back, take a deep breath, stay open, and figure out what are the steps we need to take as we move forward. We talk about even disruption. Sometimes we choose it, trying a new job, starting your own business, moving, but it still can be uneasy. And so it's just take a deep breath, get perspective, shift perspective. All right. Well, I'm grateful to have you here, and I'm grateful to our listeners. I want you to know Amanda is an expert on many things. So if you have questions, put them in the chat, and we're both happy to help encourage you and answer them. I want to shift from disruption because I'm really so excited about pineapples always, but especially lately. And so I want to talk about, we talked a little bit before we jumped on live about how we are pineapple people in the world, seeing people, valuing people, and being kind. But also we want to add in, because you said this, and so I want you to talk about when you're working with your clients, adding voice and vision to the people, to letting the people that sometimes are taken for granted be seen in every and any organization. So talk about, I call it being a pineapple person, valuing people and giving them voice, however you want to say it.
Yeah. So, and I know we spoke a little bit about this in previous conversations and today before we jumped on, but the whole purpose of folks, I should say the whole purpose of my business and my team in existence is to give people who don't typically get a seat at the table a voice. We're going into these organizations because leadership is deciding we have an issue or we need to do something. We need to change this thing. Maybe not necessarily disruption, but we just need to upgrade this piece of software. We need to, whatever it is, right? So leadership is making that decision because they recognize that there's an opportunity there. There's a gap. But the people who my team and I are addressing these issues for are actually the folks that don't usually get a seat at the table, oddly enough, which in part I find a little bit wild because we've spoken about this before, but those are the folks that have the most insight to the business, right? They're facing off with your customers. They're answering the phone. They're addressing the customer service emails. They're the customer success manager, right? And they're going to upsell you or whatever. They're usually not in the room when decisions are being made, which is wild. And so that's why my team and I, that's why we start sort of from the bottom up, top down, because we need to understand how it is that those folks get from one day to the next. And how do we make that better?
Yeah.
Right. Because those folks are the folks that I need to make sure that they're happy, make sure that they have all the tools and resources that they need to do their jobs effectively, that I understand where they're coming from, the things that they face from one day to the next. Right. Because leadership doesn't really understand the process in which we get, paid.
Yeah.
Right. They just know that we get paid or we don't get paid. We're fixing the process in which we get paid. So how your team faces off with your customers, how the customer is being onboarded, what information are we collecting from them, or the patient, I should say. We also work with healthcare. How is their information being onboarded and collected and stored and all that jazz? So literally the process in which we make our money and increase the bottom line and all the other things that we love, we fix the how. Right. So that's why I say we can really work with anyone who has a reasonable budget, because we understand the folks that we're really helping are the ones that aren't at the table, don't have a say, and should, because they're the ones doing the thing.
And is a big part of your business implementing or teaching or creating process and systems for organizations? What would you say is the greatest? Is it communication? Is it processes? Is it systems? Is it awareness? What is kind of if you can make it a small nugget? I know you do a lot of things, but if there's one thing that the listeners are saying, hey, this is really where I'm struggling, what is that one thing that you initially address?
Yeah. So I would say yes to all, and I'll sum that up. I'll try to make it not as overwhelming. So yes to all. So whether you're going to again, we open this with disruption. So whether we're going to change a process in which we do something, or add a piece of technology, which will of course change the process. We said earlier that whole situation sounds very scary unless you understand where you fit into that equation.
Yeah.
So yes, we're going to change this process, or yes, we're going to implement a new system. But if I don't tell you what's going on and where you fit in, you're going to be scared to death. That's called job insecurity, actually. And so we actually marry the people, process, technology, and customer experience.
Okay.
Right. So it is communication. It's called change management, which is what we do. It is through the model of change management. I'm essentially explaining to you what steps we're about to take, where you fit into that, what's going to happen, what does that look like, and how this is going to help you. And then, of course, obviously fixing the business and making, things that are done manually or with software that's no longer serving you. We're going to upgrade that, but you have to almost communicate what's going to happen and then sort of unravel what's going to happen. Right. So, does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
I get made fun of a lot because I don't watch the news. I really am not into chaos and drama. Lived it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I watch 60 Minutes. Not all the time, but maybe once a month. And I watched maybe a month ago, and there was a man, Amanda, I got to say, I loved what this guy's idea was. So he comes in and he buys companies. But as soon as he buys them, he bought a manufacturing company. I can't remember if they make garage doors or something like that in a small Amish town. As soon as he buys them, he goes to all the employees, including all the factory workers, and he says, from now on, it's not my company, it's yours. And everybody gets a piece of it. And his intention is to grow it and within 5 years resell it. And he is doing amazing, massive. But he came into this town and they interviewed some of the people that worked in the factory. They're making bare minimum, barely getting by, barely paying bills. And he said, no, from now on, you all own this percentage. You gave them each percentage based on how long they've been there. And he said, my goal is to sell it in 5 years. And I don't know if I'm going to lose money or make money or break even, but your production and your ownership of this. And he sold it for, 100 times what he bought it for. And one of the men that worked in the factory, him and his wife both worked there, he said, I can't disclose how much I got. I'm not comfortable, but I got 6 times my annual salary when he sold it. And I'm still coming back to work. But these factory workers, even the newest people, all got $20,000, and they're showing them being announced they're getting 20,000, and they're screaming and jumping. And I'm like, if you do not treat your employees like they're part of the ownership, then they don't treat your product or your company like they give it. It's who cares if they take home this and that, and throw some extra tape and stamps in their bag, because it's not theirs. But when how he led them and showed them and valued them, it was just, for me, it was like, why does everybody not get this? Like, if you don't care, he said, I don't need to make 100 times what you guys make. I want you to make well and tell everybody how much you love working here. And then I'm whatever. So did you see that story? Do you know the guy I'm talking about at all?
I didn't see the story, but it kind of goes back to our theory in business, right? It's until people understand where that is a version of disruption. He disrupted the way you acquire a business, grow it, scale it, sell it, right? We all know that business. It's very common, but he sort of disrupted the way that is conducted, and he's still going to make money, but it's also about allowing people to understand where they fit into this scenario. So yes, you are getting a piece of the pie, so to speak, which then makes them value a lot more what they're doing because they understand that they're valued, and it's including them. Yes. And I think certainly gone are the days of, you work here, I'm doing you a favor by keeping you. I remember a long, long time ago, someone that I worked for, that's the way that person felt, was that they were doing you a favor by employing you. And I remember at the time just thinking, how arrogant, like,
this isn't going to work for you.
If I walked out today, you wouldn't have a clue how to do what and that's sort of where the birth of this idea of operations, which didn't have a name 200 years ago, right? When I was working for someone, but that's where the birth of it came from, because if I walked out that day, and eventually I did obviously leave and move on and whatever, but that's where the birth of this business came from. Yeah. Because they didn't understand what folks like me needed, and were just in the mindset of, they're doing all of us a favor by paying all of us, right? And it was like, hang on, you wouldn't have a business without all of us, right? So it was that was the inspiration of me starting this business, amongst other things, but that's where it was birthed.
Well, I love it so much. And I also think when you value people and their work, they feel it, and then they value you. Like it's like there's plenty. I always have that mindset of there's plenty. You're not taking, because you celebrate someone doesn't take away from your value and their value and all of ours. And what I loved about it so much, because they asked him, have you had a fail yet? Because he's been doing it with a lot of companies. And he said, not yet, but I will. And he said, but I tell them that up front, like, you get to own. And the faster you produce and the more accurately and the less errors, the happier the customer, the more referrals. And this couple that they were interviewing that were getting 6 times their annual salary said, but if the new buyer doesn't, if it doesn't work, we're okay leaving. We're financially secure now, but we love the company now. It does feel like ours. It changes everything when we value our employees. All right. So what I want to ask you next, Amanda, is, because I know you do have a brilliant mind. I have vision. I have a lot of vision. I'm big vision.
Love that.
But I'm not always process and systems, so I'm getting better. In July, I launched a new product. I want to talk to you about it because I want our listeners to think about product, especially those of us that are speakers and consultants. I have 9 books, 3 workbooks, online courses, but I wanted a tangible product that people could take away.
Yeah.
So about the middle of July, I launched, which has been since 2018, the Pineapple Message. I wanted a pineapple product. So I launched this P3. P3 is my purpose formula. So it's saying, take your pain plus your passion and turn it into your purpose. And these pineapple packages are a beach bag to remind you sunny days are ahead, and take rest when you need. A beautiful blue blanket with yellow pineapples, really ultra soft, that feels like a hug when life is hard or when we want to appreciate our employees. A water bottle to remind you to stay hydrated, 2 pineapple books, and a bracelet saying, I will commit to being a pineapple person. So it's a message that comes from the pineapple poem and principle. It's a movement because my vision said this is why I'm like, I can see this factory with 1 million of these a year going out into the
Oh, I
world.
love it.
Totally see, like I told my husband, you're going to retire and just stand up there and say, good job, good job. That's what you're going to do. That's going to be your goal. So pineapple bracelet. And then it's a mission. So for every 3 that are sold, I donate one back to a shelter for women and children escaping domestic violence. And I
I love it.
started, I think July 9th was my first day I announced it. And by the end of July, I'd sold 75. And so I donated 25. I was so like teary in
Yep.
celebration of getting this mission out. My question to you, yes, message, movement, mission. My question to you is, I've sold 11 in August. So I sold age 75, super happy, 11 in August. We're nearing the
Yep.
end of August. I am curious from your mind. In my head, I'm like, do I hire an influencer? Do I sell them on Instagram? I lost about $800 the first month. So how do I keep producing? Do I raise the cost? If I can't sell them at this cost, do I lower the cost? Is the price the barrier? Is the getting the message out? So when you're advising someone new in business, or I'm not new in business, but with a new product, what are your thoughts on it? Curious if you have thoughts, any, but I was like, how do I get them out? So the
Yep.
marketing, the sales, when do you stop selling? Because my husband's like, are you going to at least break even? And I'm like, I just get to give to people and it makes me so happy. He's like, oh my gosh, have a business mind instead of just a passionate mind. And so, yeah, just thoughts.
So my first thought is, so especially in the e-commerce business, or it's a seasonable business, and let's start off like this. You are located in Florida. I am
Correct.
located in New York City.
Right.
Where you live is sunshine 90% of the year, right?
Right.
Where I live, we have 4 seasons turning into 2 seasons, right? Where it goes from extremely hot to extremely cold.
Yeah.
Now, and again, Black Friday, was birthed from, most retailers make most of their money for the year between Black Friday and the holiday time, right? The end of the year.
Yes. Yeah.
What you just said was, we have a beach bag, a beach towel, fantastic, love it, a bracelet, water bottle, all that other jazz, right? But for someone who's in New York and wants to be a pineapple person, the beach mindset, I'm already past, right? Because now I'm thinking fall, flannels, winter coats, right? Where you're like, no, we're going to the beach, right? So what I would say is, I love the concept of pineapple people.
Okay.
I love the message that comes with it. It potentially is an opportunity to think about how the products that you have designed can then translate into something that someone who is already heading into fall can utilize. So maybe repackaging, maybe changing the towel and the beach bag to a blanket,
So
water
it is
bottle, bracelet.
It is a blanket. It's not a towel. And
Oh, okay.
let me tell you a little bit more backstory so maybe this can help us. So when I initially created these, I wanted them to be in hospital gift stores because I'm allergic to flowers and so is my mom. So when you're sick, people want to send you something and they send
Yeah.
you flowers. But for those of us that are allergic, it's like first they die, second we're allergic, or food. And so they give you these gifts. So I thought, okay, customer appreciation for hotels or comfort in hospitals. So it
Yeah.
is a warm blanket. It's a soft blanket for
Love it.
year round. So it's not a beach towel. And the beach bag was when you're going through something hard, remember the sun will come up.
Sunny
There's
days, right?
hope. So it's not summer, it's more hope.
Yeah.
Neither of those have panned out yet. But what I realized is, oh my gosh, educators are my market. I want people to buy them for teachers to show them appreciation, but then for teachers to have them to teach to students.
Yeah.
So I can see how it would feel seasonal, but at least that wasn't my intention. It was
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
comfort.
So I had another client who does something called kitting, which again is very much in the e-commerce space. It's called kitting. And it essentially, for your viewers, are the gift, if you go into any of the department stores and you see those gift packages, the bag and the perfume and the whatever, and sometimes they're the normal size, sometimes they're a smaller size.
Yeah.
That's a kit that is put together in a warehouse or wherever, put together specially designed for the holidays or designed for teacher, back to school or whatever it might be. And so I would say to any, business that is kind of dealing with some of this stuff is to rethink the way you package. The message is still the same, but maybe rethink the way that you package your offering, right? And so maybe it's a different price for the blanket, the bracelet, the water bottle. For and you could do something like a kit, which a lot of e-commerce businesses do, Valentine's Day or Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it might be, whatever they're trying to cover, and that will be the theme. And this is sort of the gift that you put together, and maybe there's something a little special in addition to for that particular holiday or something. So you could put it together like a kit, this is a special set for back to school, back to college. All the kids are going back to
different. Put themes with your packaging to address Christmas, Hanukkah, back to school, Valentine's for the person you love.
Like so you have to think about like an e-commerce business, because again, if people don't understand how this relates to them, whether it be change, whether it be gifts, whether it be marketing, if they don't understand how it is connected to them, then they're going to tune it out, right? But if you say back to school, this could be good for college kids going back to school. They're moving away from home. Some of them are going cross country, to other countries, to whatever it might be. Maybe this is a reminder for them.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe there's something special that goes with it. I don't know, but that's what I would say is just kind of rethink how you market the message, because the message is fantastic. But thinking about how you can make it relatable to more people who need to understand how to be a pineapple person.
Got it.
That's what I would say.
All right. Thank you for that. I want to ask you just one last question before we let our audience know how to. So when a business is thinking about working with you, what are the first 3 questions you ask them to see if you're a good fit, they're a good fit? What are the first 3 things you ask?
Yeah. So I actually don't usually share this, but we do have qualifiers.
Okay.
And for me, and this is kind of a perfect opportunity to connect it to this show, one of our qualifiers is I have to almost instantly pick up on why you're doing this. Why are you contacting us? Mm-hmm. And if it is only about the bottom line and about sales, and I need to increase sales and money and money and money and money, you are not a good fit for us. Mm-hmm. If we speak to business leaders, and again, it could be you're running a 10-person small business, or you're running a 10-person department at a $2 trillion company. It doesn't matter. We need to hear, the thing that I need to hear specifically is you are doing this because, and that because has to somehow be connected back to the people that work for you. Okay. That's that's the top qualifier. I have turned down
human, not just the bottom line.
It has to be the human first. The bottom line, I mean, that's kind of a given, right? Like nobody's going to make business decisions that are not going to positively affect the bottom line, but it's more important the reasoning behind why you're doing what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I would say like the trigger that would sort of start the snowball effect of contacting someone like us is your team, or you, but your team is finding something incredibly frustrating. Mm. This thing keeps crashing. I can't keep up with customer demand, right? No matter what we do, customers are giving us a bad review online. No matter what we do, we can't pick up the phone fast enough. We can't take orders fast enough. I'm trying to give, maybe you're a call center and, no matter what you do, you're taking in the customer information, you're trying to help them, but you're copying and pasting information from one system to the next, or the system you're using keeps crashing. Something is happening, right, within the business, within the day to day, that starts off annoying, becomes incredibly frustrating, then grows into this is no longer sustainable. Like you are going to go nuts. That's usually, hopefully they call us, in the earlier stages of that, but that's usually when, they're going to start talking to someone like us, because then they'll say, there's so many choices out there. There's so many, where do we start? What do we do? And that's sort of, so that would be the trigger for someone to kind of contact someone like us, is to help them figure out what the heck is actually going on, where to start. And again, there's sort of a method to the madness, our process, but yeah.
Awesome. Amanda, I know, thank you so much for being with me today. What is the best place for people to connect with you if they want to learn more, get to know you, have that initial conversation?
Yeah. So I would say I'm always available on LinkedIn. Definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I try to post as much information and tips and tricks and such on LinkedIn. Not daily, but a lot. You can also check out our website. We have a very active blog on www.cpcchangeagent.com.
Yeah.
We have ebooks, we've got surveys, we've got business plans, all at no cost. So I would definitely say check it out, poke around, download whatever you want to download. We have weekly newsletters, and there's always all kinds of information that we try to provide and help, our clients make good decisions.
And I'll have you share the link to your website in the comments after our show. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your ideas. Thank you to our listeners. Remember, Amanda and I are happy to answer your questions and encourage you, whether you're a business owner or a mom or both. We're here to encourage you on your journey, whoever you are. So please ask your questions and put comments. Thanks for being with us. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.